South Africa's government and higher education sector have invested a lot of time and money over the past 2 decades. This is to enhance the country's research output and cultivate the next generation of researchers. Though there's been some progress, South Africa still isn't close to its National Development Plan target of reaching 100 PhDs per million people by 2030. By 2021, the rate stood at 59 PhDs per million people. Among the reasons that the country is behind on its goal is that most initiatives to grow the PhD cohort often overlook doctoral students who work full-time while pursuing their PhDs. Joining us to discuss the challenges faced by full-time employees who have embarked on this academic journey is Zama Mthombeni, Chief Researcher in Equitable Education and Economies Research Division of the Human Science Research Council. Good afternoon, Doctor. Thank you very much for your time and for joining us on the SABC. Before we get to the challenges and how employers and government can assist, just talk us through what South Africa benefits when it grows its PhD cohort.
Good afternoon and thank you for having me. Firstly, when we grow the cohort of PhD graduates, we need to understand that we are building a pipeline of the next generation of researchers, and we are building the pipeline of a knowledge economy. On the other hand, there is an issue of having an aging professorship, meaning that the more professors who have skills and knowledge who walk out of the workforce of the academic space, you need to have a substantial amount of academics who have the right skills who are in the pipeline. Therefore, that is to ensure that we have quality and skilled lecturers in our higher education to ensure that we have quality teaching and supervision that happens.
All right. And how big is this group of doctoral students who are working full-time in comparison to those who are not working, according to available data?
All right. There's a study that was run by CREST, which is a unit in Stellenbosch. Did a very long longitudinal study from 2000 to the year 2018, and 32,000 of the students who were part of the participants, 60%, over 60% were working full-time, which is a significant number of people.
So now you conducted a study on the experiences of these full-time employees that are also embarking on this academic journey, from the policies that held them back to them being unable to finish in record time. Just talk us through your study.
All right. So I did a qualitative phenomenological study. That study means that you are acquiring the lived experiences. And these employees, all of them were interns. So these were PhD interns. They're doing their doctoral studies whilst they're doing their doctoral internship. So what I was gathering from them, they're different genders, female, males, different age groups, and they were in different higher education spaces, all of them in South Africa. And they are all studying through South African institutions. As we speak today, 5 of them have graduated and some are still continuing. So a lot of the issues and around the study was gathering through interviews. What are some of the institutional challenges that they have in the workspace, institutional challenges that they have also in the universities? So the study was trying to understand what are some of the issues that cause the delay for doctoral students, and none of them were able to complete their degrees in the record time of 3 years, which has been set. Even funding tells you that in order for NRF to give you funding, the funding only lasts for 3 years, because that is the benchmark that has been set. And studies have shown that it's becoming quite impossible.
Was the benchmark, pardon me for interjecting there, was the benchmark set for full-time students, or they did take into account those that would be full-time employees?
It's for full-time students.
All right, okay. Yes. So naturally, one would assume that it would be difficult then for full-time employees to finish within record time. But what other challenges do they face? What impact does being married, having children, and all of that, having to deal with family and just financial issues, how much of an impact does this have on them taking more than the 3 years to complete their doctoral studies?
All right. I want to get to that point by riding on this full-time story. Remember that in order to get funding, you have to be registered as a full-time student. So a lot of the PhD students register as full-time students, but in reality, they are not full-time students. So it is becoming harder to get a student who's just doing their doctoral education without being involved in any sort of work. So that is the first challenge, because you can't get financial assistance, because a lot of it is directed to students who do their PhD in full-time. So since a lot of them are mothers, a lot of them are above the youth age gap between 18 to 35. So that's another embedded issue, that if you're doing your PhD at the age of 36, you're doing your PhD at the age of 37, there's some benefits that you cannot have. Some are single parents, and some come from disadvantaged homes. And do remember that they're all doing their internships. These are not people who are in academic roles, they're interns.
So how can they be assisted? If now the funding is an issue, you've got to also work, because you could be a single mom, you could be married, you're just contributing financially to your everyday living. How can they be assisted by employers? Because we know that with Scandinavian countries, they do tend to pay.
Yes. That's one of the issues, that we cannot take on our PhD students as staff, like countries like Sweden and Norway, which are able to take their doctoral students as part of staff. The first thing is to be realistic, firstly, about who are our PhD students, as data and evidence in research has shown that our PhD students are mothers. Our PhD students are people who actually need financial support. So one of the ways is for us to broaden the age gap for people that we support in the PhD studies. Because the NRF, for example, rating system puts a person who's 40 years and below as an emerging researcher. But does it make sense that our funding models then expects a person who's above 35 years old to be emerged? For me, these two policies do not speak to each other, because we understand that a lot of people by that mid-year, they are still tipping into their academic career. So that is one of the issues. And I believe that also collaboration between universities, collaboration between other institutions that assist with higher education related sectors should come together, because the issue is not only about funding, but there's mentorship issues, there's emotional, psychological, psychosocial issues that actually impede upon how doctoral students actually succeed in their studies.
You know, when you just describe or take us through the journey of these doctoral students, one feels we clearly don't celebrate them enough, because there's clearly a lot that they go through when they eventually get that title of doctor. Dr. Zama, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Dr. Zama Mthombeni, Chief Researcher in Equitable Education and Economies Research Division of the Human Sciences Research Council.